Hello, everyone. Welcome back. This is Take Time Podcast, and my name is Kieran. On this week's episode, I have some updates, and one is my backdrop. I'm genuinely trying to spice things up a little because the white on white is just not me at all, and this is all right for now. Maybe it'll change, possibly. I'm also someone who genuinely just lives life as a minimalist, and it's tricky to decorate because everything I decorate with is very small and trinkety or spiritual or dried flowers because I can just sort of get rid of them without attachment. But everything I have is sort of more portable, and I actually brought this. This tapestry has been a couple locations with me. It's been Wyoming, it's been New York, and now it's here. And I have been in this time period of learning expression. And I know that sounds kind of funny coming from a 30-year-old, as I've had 30 years to express, but I feel that life is such an unfoldment of figuring out who you are, and it just changes all the time. There's so much clothes that I've gone through that just don't feel like me anymore. And I'm feeling this transition, and it's exciting. And I think I'm finally going to get the sleeve that I want. I've wanted a tattoo sleeve on my left arm for probably 4 or 5 years now, and I just haven't found the artist, and I haven't totally discovered what I want to put on it. But now I'm kind of sure. And I think that also coming with this age of 30 is there's just an assuredness, a sureness in you, and it feels pretty good. So it's something that I've been thinking about and running with, and I just want to always show up as authentically as I can, and I'm working on that. I'm an introvert, okay? So doing this is like the most introverted side of you gets to sort of pretend that they're an extrovert, except behind closed doors. So kind of like the world looks at me instead of me seeking out a world of my own. And that's everyone that continues to listen and everyone that has stayed with me and is going to find me one day. So, update, new backdrop. I'm not sure about it. Maybe it'll stay, maybe it won't. Judging by how quickly I feel a transformation and light inside me changing, probably won't last long. But it's a little more fun than just the white. I hate white on white. If I could design this entire place as from the 1960s, I would. Bring back wooden windowsills. It's so quality and beautiful. And shag rugs, okay? That's all I'll talk about on there. I digress. So another update. Well, it's actually a hair update. So you'll kind of learn about me as we go along, but I have been working to figure out the best hair care I possibly can since a child, and quite literally since I broke a brush in my hair and cried. And my mom was watching. So it's been a real journey. And normally I order my products from the UK, but if y'all know, I'm in America and it's really steep. So I don't make enough money right now to do that. And I'm just hoping to find something else that's maybe more local and also natural. The whole reason I started ordering products from the UK was because it was natural and I didn't have this like toxic guilt shedding into my skin when I did my hair. So I'm actually reaching out to ask if anyone knows of any natural hair care products for us curly girls that I don't live in a humid environment, so it's definitely helpful, but still to withstand the frizz. So I'll let you guys know what I did was coconut oil I used a lot of coconut oil, honestly. And then I used a product, I don't know if it's DGK, but it's called Ringtone. And I mean, it's looking pretty good. I usually don't like the wet look. My hair's kind of still wet because I did just shower. So, but looking for something that'll dry into a little bit more of a natural sort of beach curl instead of that like wet, greasy look, which unfortunately had a really deep stage of that when I was in high school. And it didn't help that I have no sisters. So always had to figure it out on my own. No one had, actually, no, one of my girlfriends had really curly hair and we kind of did the same do for a bit. It didn't mean that it was a good one. Put it that way. Okay. So today's topic and my third update. My third update is that I am flying home next week. Home to New York. And man, I'm always excited and I never truly feel it until I'm in the plane, and then like you can feel when you're about to be around an area, even in the sky, you can kind of sense that different shift of energy, even the time zone, and when your plane lands, and then it's like this excitement and also this like usually historic sort of internal wound that shows up a lot. Whenever I go to New York, it's like being put into a vacuum of the past. And I like to call this little thing I sort of made up, I call places and spaces that I've been to that have sort of a significant memory attached, memory pockets. When you revisit those places, you like step into the pocket of that. And so sometimes New York can be really challenging for me because I'm stepping into this past version as a new version. And it's like, am I going to revert back to that person, or am I going to show up as this new developed me, which I want to be? I want to be stronger. I want to be smarter and wiser and not make the same mistakes. But sometimes old energy pulls you back to challenge you. And a lot of the times you want to make the same mistakes. And I've done good, but I've definitely gone down some rabbit holes that are a lower vibration energy than me and who I really am and who I'm becoming as a woman. When we're in old spaces, it triggers a lot of memories and a lot of feelings. And as I know, in Tantra tradition, the teachings say when something shows up, it shows up to go. And so when we're put back in these spaces, these memory pockets, right, the universe and God and our angels and everything is there supporting us to transform and to grow through. And so New York can be pretty tricky because I'm always healing, right? And I've worked on myself so much and really made peace with a lot of the things that hurt me about New York. But it doesn't mean the old energy isn't there to test me. With that being said, today's topic is centered around forgiveness. Why I love going home now is because I live in the peace of forgiveness. I'm no longer in the well of emotions that absorb and consume me, where my body and soul is craving that low energy that's not meant to be with me in this part, that's not meant to come through. I really am proud of myself for that. I'm proud of myself for being able to be in the space that can be so triggering and challenging and find peace within myself with that, where that's not me anymore and it isn't my identity. And my mother's home particularly is not who I am as a person. And I don't have to live under the roof of that in the energy of it every day, keeping myself small. I can be as big and loud as I fucking want. And I create my own reality now because I've grown through it. There's a really beautiful word in Sanskrit, which is an Ayurvedic language called Kshama. Kshama. And it's really beautiful because it breaks down into forgiveness. In Ayurveda, it's not just a one definition fits all sort of puzzle. It breaks down to a deepness that holds and saves space for the soul and really exemplifies what forgiveness is. So Kshama also breaks down to patience and forbearance. And there's a really beautiful definition of forgiveness that I really like. And it's the ability to absorb hurt without being consumed by it. And the forbearance aspect is bearing life's difficulties with grace. Okay, sit with that for a second. The ability to absorb hurt without being consumed by it. When I think about forgiveness, I think about a lifelong journey to that road. And the road is no more absorption, no more retaliation and anger and resentment and arguing and fighting and bitterness and a lot of shame. But the shame comes later. At first, we're reactive. I'll get a little personal. So, growing up, my mother struggled with addiction to alcohol. And it really set the tone and the playing field for my entire life. And when we really think about forgiveness, I want you to think about the hurt person that you were. Because we don't just wake up and forgive. When we think about the hurt person inside and what you went through, that is the child that was formed around this problem that wasn't even yours. That's a large pill to swallow. And I'm going to speak in my own experience, and I know there's other ways, but I'm not going to talk about that because I can't relate to it. I formed an identity around the way that my mother treated me, which was inconsistent and honestly hurtful and unavailable. So I created an identity around that. And because that was my immediate environment, that's what I knew. That was what I was able to understand. Yeah, I had friends at school. I was in other environments. But growing up, your family is the most primal thing to you. And I'm going to drop a bomb, but the ironic thing is your family isn't even attached to your literal soul. Your soul is so free, but we in this plane have a concept of ourselves and what this world is to us and around us in the physical. And in reality, yes, you chose your parents because your soul had lessons that it needed to fulfill. But that doesn't mean the contract with your family actually makes them part of your family. And that's a lot to digest and a lot to make peace with, because we care so much about what these people think, and we care so much about seeing them and visiting. Like, I'm literally flying across the country to see them, and I consider them my family because yes, they are. In this waking, living life on earth, they are. But in reality, they're just a part of a timeline, a single timeline. And there's so many timelines to dive into, and that are pre-existing and also simultaneously existing as we are. I built a self-concept around the fact that my mother couldn't be there for me. And so what did I do? I reacted. I retaliated. I became self-reliant, became overly independent. I had a little pride in the fact that she was the way she was because I could do whatever the fuck I wanted. And I got away with almost all of it, which isn't good. And I hope my mom never listens to that. Sorry, Mom. I love you. as a child with no rules, and the main person that you want to love and feel loved from, I didn't. And my dad wasn't around. So that's a whole nother story. So I'm just taking us into the point of the child that is struggling to forgive, because I know that someone in this world right now is still stuck there. Someone is still stuck there and taking that anger and resentment on repeat out on this person. And that looks a lot like not talking to a loved one. I'm going to speak in more of the realm of family, so you can take it as it is. It has to do with just avoiding that person, avoiding contact, not talking, pushing them away out of your life. Maybe you have kids and you don't let the grandma or grandparents come around, or the in-laws, or whatever. Now, I want to say too, because there's a big debate about whether people deserve, and I don't like that word, but I'm going to use it because it's very common, whether people deserve to be forgiven or not. Now, use your own discretion, but from my experience and the talk that I want to bring some light to today is that when you choose, because it's a decision, to not forgive someone, you are only harming yourself in the long run and in the grand scheme. And that's the truth. It's pride, it's ego when you hold a grudge, because inside it hurts. And I know it hurts because I've lived it. I held a grudge for years. And did it make me feel any better? No. Sure, there was drive. There was motivation behind it. It pushed me to, honestly, escape. It pushed me so far away that I got a high off of how far away from home I could ever be. And that consisted of Wyoming, that consisted of long car rides to Vermont and road trips upstate New York, roads and Tennessee, and all the places I could be besides home, because home was not a safe space for me. So my lessons in this were, what am I running away from? And that is where the healing is. Unfortunately, sometimes we have to go to those memory pockets to heal, to come back. I explain in my Saturn return video how when I went to Wyoming, it shattered my heart because I had to go back home to New York. And you should listen to that one because it's really good. Almost to explain that a little better is, I'm so grateful that I had my reality shattered because I stopped running away from me. The pain doesn't live in front of us. It doesn't live even in that person. The pain is here and in our hearts and in our souls. And when we let that fester, let it grow by avoiding and ignoring in this self-denial, we're just abandoning ourselves. That's a truth. So I am so grateful in hindsight to have been given the opportunity, because on my own, I would have been a stubborn little brat and I would not have gone home. There's no way I would have given up my whole life just to be like, well, yeah, I feel like going back to New York now. That sounds like fun. No, I never. My ego would have died. Like, it did die. But I never would have come to that conclusion on my own. I never would have made that decision on my own. It had to happen. I had to go home and face the very thing I left and pushed away. And that I would never trade, because I gained so much in my heart and my existence from what felt like the most painful thing to look at. You don't get that by avoiding. It lives inside. And you know what? When I went back home, here's a story. I'm a minimalist at best, and I live by what I can fit in the trunk of my car or my truck, basically. That's how I like it. Anything else gives me anxiety. Also another trigger from my mom. That one I'm a little grateful for though. However, when I got back home, it was like 2 days later. I just moved back in, and I had a crate. You know the size of a crate. A crate full of some canned goods and rice and beans probably, you know. And I asked my mother if she could clear a spot out in the pantry. If she could please, in this large filled kitchen, could you please give me a little space to put my dry goods so they don't have to be in my room? Talk about walking back into the devil's den, okay? Wow, she blew up on me. She blew the fuck up on me. Okay, and we fought, and I went in my room in this newfound character, this girl who had just explored, expanded, grew, blossomed, flowered. Like, I changed so much from the minute I left and ran away from home and then went to Wyoming and came back. I changed so much, and it was that test of like, well, now what are you gonna do? You gonna blow up, or you gonna scream back, or... And I wrote it down. It challenged me. It challenged the sense of self that I was undoing being away from this toxic environment for me. And just because it's a toxic environment doesn't mean that there's not lessons to be had. It's just a matter of how quick you want to learn them. When you learn them, you can leave. That's the best part. But if you don't learn them, a lot of the times you remain there. And as much as you want to leave, for some reason, right, you stay. Toxic relationships, being stuck at a home you don't want to be in, or a place in life, it's all the same. So my sense of self was greatly challenged, and that was just like day 2 back on the ranch, you know what I mean? I didn't learn. My heart was set on goals of the future. I had a checklist I wanted to do, and I wasn't exactly paying attention in the meantime and learning the gratitude for the place and learning to see my mother in a new light. That came. But it took about 2 years. So, again, it doesn't always come in the time that we want it to. I wanted to get the F out of there and as close to the West again as I possibly could. And that wasn't in the cards. And that's not what happened, and that's not what God said. God was like, sit down, bitch. Okay? You're gonna leave, but you're gonna leave loving this woman. And it doesn't mean that her problems went away. They're still there in a different way, right? I had to show up and be the one who was different. I had to be the one to show up to show her that this communication was possible between us. And it was like chipping away at a block of ice with a needle. Okay? And I had to be the wise one. I had to be the strong one. I had to be the one that left when I didn't want to have the conversation because there wasn't any positivity coming from it, and walk away, take space. And I also had to be the one to initiate the conversation. And we came to a point, and I almost like want to cry. We came to a point where we were like, I feel like I can talk to you again. And like, I feel like I remember her coming into my room and saying like, just talking about how we had, like, it was nice to have a conversation with you. And it was like, instead of it being an argument and yelling and fighting and all the stuff, that changed the tone. There was no going backwards after that. It was, and I wasn't just sitting there going, I forgive you, that's it, you know? Like, forgive, I don't forget. Like, I'm a big never forget, but forgive, like, you know, obviously to protect yourself. But I wasn't sitting there just realizing, oh, this is what forgiveness is. It took me until years later and I moved out and everything to be like, this relationship is allowed to be good. And I don't need to feel the way I've felt in the past anymore. I can just let it go. And it was like, a breath of air, because every conversation that we had after that was a little bit closer to love and farther away from separation. The ego says, I was wounded. You hurt me. I deserve. I can't ever let this go. Now, what does that sound like? That sounds like a little boy or girl. Little hurt boy or girl. It's your fault. That's what the ego says. Love is the decision you make when it hurts. And speaking from a place of love is like, I can see and recognize that my mother was hurt, and hurt people hurt people. Was it right that I was a teenager and preteen? No, absolutely not. However, love sheds the perspective of anger because I can see and hold you with compassion instead. And that is where you start to turn the dial away from the blame and back on yourself. Love is compassionate. I can sit here and be mad at her for hurting me all those years, but also I grew up into a pretty badass fucking person given my situation, and I did a lot of things because I was so repelled by her behavior. Granted, I unfortunately took on some of her behavior too. However, I made the decision along the way that this behavior that I've adopted is actually hurting me too. And so in this messiness of the time, because, this was years worth of process of figuring out and learning something new and then repeating old mistakes. And then sometimes it takes one experience to really lift that weight, because we hold an expectation with the people that we don't want to forgive. And that's the tough part too. That expectation says, this is how it is now, and it's not going to change. But that's an expectation, and that's also ego. And that's also protecting and self-abandoning at the same time. The whole world, God, universe, just wants you to love. It doesn't mean we're not gonna get hurt in the process. But it's not often talked about the freedom that comes with forgiveness. Kshama. Because it's just such a beautiful word. Kshama. The freedom that comes with Kshama. And that's because you're liberating yourself from a wound inside of your soul that probably had so much to do with the way that you act now and the way that you raised yourself into the person who you are today. And there's so much gratitude there. And understanding, take a step back outside of yourself. And from a soul's perspective, an orb, what if that was your lesson to learn that freed you up, and now you're able and capable and have the tools inside your soul to expand and do whatever it is that was so blocked for years. They say, especially in Ayurveda, dis-ease in the body is usually caused by a living emotion that we don't want to look at and separate ourselves from and release. That's profound. Another part of this that I really liked was that the shadow side of forgiveness is used to escape discomfort rather than transform. The shadow of forgiveness is used to escape discomfort rather than transform. So for all my people out there who just want to ignore it and deal with it, you're enabling your own problem, and you're also avoiding the possibility of your transformation into whatever it is that blocks you. Forgiveness and not being able to forgive my mom blocked me from being happier, because instead I lived in a lie and told myself my mother doesn't love me because blank. And that's not the truth, because now I can see her as the person who is love. And just didn't know what to do or what else to do and had poor coping mechanisms and who couldn't even see her way out. I had a single mom. There was a lot of pressure there. And I love that I can sit there and make the decision to see her in a light as a hurt human. And if you are cringing at the thought that or thinking I'm making excuses for my mother, that's not it. And you need to go back and look at your own situation because it's triggering you because there's something there. I love my mother and I can say it. And I call her like once every other week and we have conversations, and for like the first time in my life I can like vent to her and respect her opinion and respect her feedback instead of for the longest time it was like all she does is judge me. Maybe what I was doing wasn't very good and I was insecure about it and blaming her. So all that to say, forgiveness is not separate from the self and it's not separate from life and living your path and your truth. In order to achieve things in your life, you're going to have to forgive people, situations, things. Don't hold grudges. Holding grudges only hurts yourself as well. So there's some questions that I like. It's good to just reflect and it's good to sit with things. And I'm also going to do the same. But can I release hatred while still setting boundaries? Can I seek justice without revenge? Can I protect myself without becoming cruel? And can I respond from wisdom rather than a wounded pride? This will give you the answer whether you are still hurting or not. Or if you already know internally because you do. These questions will soften the forgive and forget. There's levels or stages of Kshama. And the first is restraint, not acting from anger. This is where we start. This is the starting point of that pivotal moment I brought up about when I decided to do something differently. I could have yelled back. That would have been doing it the same, creating the same loop. I could have ignored her, walked away. That would have been doing the same thing in the same loop I always do. I could have moved 2,000 miles away again. Okay, would have been creating the same loop. And you can use this in relationships too, right? Restraint, not acting from anger. I hold compassion for myself and security in who I am enough to know I don't need to fight back, okay? And then tolerance, bearing the discomfort without retaliation. So I guess I said that kind of wrong. So the restraint would be just not getting mad. And then the tolerance would really be the bearing, the sitting in the discomfort of the moment and not acting on the emotion that you want. And something's going to shift inside your brain when you do this too. And you're probably going to feel good about it. And if you don't feel good about it after, then sit with that and think about that. Because why not? What is it that you want to say to hurt that person? Because that's all it is. It's a vengeance, a retaliation. So 3 is understanding, seeing causes and conditions behind the behavior. This is the point I'm talking about where I start to make peace because I see my mom as a hurt little girl inside who never got to fulfill her dreams and her purpose and her passion, and she feels confused and hurt and lost because she wasn't given guidance. That's where the love and the compassion starts to shed because she's not just my mom anymore. She's a human. And if I can look at my friend and say, you made a mistake and that's all right, I'll move on. Why can't I give the same grace to the people closer to me? We have this obsession in society with wanting to hurt the people that are the closest to us and wanting to get back at them because a lot of the times in our waking world, we don't have a punching bag. So who do I blame? Certainly not going to blame myself, right? Why would I do that? Okay. So 4 is compassion, recognizing shared human imperfection. That's when it hits. It's not when you say it out loud. It's when it hits and you feel it. It's like a moment I step back and I go, oh, wow. I see why you did this. That is the biggest, probably peak moment of forgiving anyone, is when that moment hits. And there's so much beauty there. So much, because you just don't realize how much your life is about to change. Nothing to do with them. It's when they look at you all funny and you're just smiling and you're like, wow, I'm filled with so much love. And they're like, I want to, aren't you mad about this? You're like, no, I can't possibly be mad. I'm filled with so much love and gratitude that you did that. And then sometimes you got to let people go too. You know, this happens to be my mother, but sometimes you just sit there and you go, this is okay. Thank you for hurting me. Thank you so much. And 5 is liberation. What else would it be? No longer carrying the burden and the resentment of that pain anymore, because the world is yours. Your soul is yours again. I almost believe that a piece of our soul we give to everyone we hate, and they almost like a little voodoo doll. Except you're not holding your soul's doll, they are. And anytime they want to just stick a pin, they can. So don't give away your voodoo doll, okay? Keep it for yourself. One of my favorite books is The 5 People You Meet in Heaven by Mitch Albom. And I always remembered a quote from that book. And I can't recite a lot of quotes by heart and by memory, but this one always stood out to me. And I'm just going to read it because I feel like I'll butcher it. So I always remembered this quote. It's always lived in my heart. And I'm going to end today on this note of holding anger is poison. It eats you from the inside. And we think that by hating someone, we hurt them. But the hatred is a curved blade, and the harm we do to ourselves. Thank you, everyone, for listening today. And please, 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 if you enjoyed, if you liked, if you want to know more, please comment, rate 5 stars, follow me. I'm also on YouTube or on Instagram, taketime.pod. It would mean so much if you did that. And most importantly, if there's someone in your life right now who is struggling, and whether that's you or someone you know, in forgiving, please share this podcast. It means the world to me, but more importantly, you could have an effect on someone else's life and changing their day, changing their mindset, changing something inside them to help them transform, or yourself. So thank you, as always, for listening. And I'm going to be in New York soon. So I hope to get another episode out by Monday. And also hope to have a lot of conversations with some people. I just bought these little portable mics, so we're going to ditch this big guy for a second, but I hope to get some really good conversations with friends, and that's a big part of what I want this podcast to be. So not just me all the time. So I'll see you next Monday, and life you. Bye.